السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Continue inshallah ta'ala with Surah Al-Mutaffifin, and we stopped at ayah number 18. Ayah number 18 from Surah Al-Mutaffifin. If you have your mushaf so that we can read inshallah, I'll read and you repeat after me. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. كلا إن كتاب الأبرار لفي عليين وما أدراك ما عليون كتاب مرقوم يشهده المقربون إن الأبرار لفي نعيم على الأرائك ينظرون تعرف في وجوههم نضرة النعيم يسقون من رحيق مختوم ختامه مسك وفي ذلك فليتنافس المتنافسون ومزاجه من تسنيم عينا يشرب بها المقربون So till ayah number 28. Translation, roughly before we go through the tajweed. Actually, the tajweed first. So, as we heard, كلا إن, the noon with shadda takes counts, the two counts. كتاب الأبرار لفي عليين. Make sure the shadda is given its rights. Two shaddas, لام has shadda and ياء has shadda. لفي عليين وما أدراك ما عليون كتاب مرقوم, إدغام وغنة. كتاب مرقوم يشهده المقربون إن الأبرار لفي نعيم على الأرائك ينظرون. The Hamza is light and the Ra is heavy. على الأرائك ينظرون, إخفاء. ينظرون. تعرف في وجوههم نضرة النعيم. نضرة النعيم يسقون من رحيق مختوم. ختامه مسك وفي ذلك فليتنافس المتنافسون ومزاجه من تسنيم, إخفاء. من تسنيم عينا يشرب بها المقربون. The translation of the verses. Nay, verily the record writing of the deeds of Al-Abrar is preserved in Illiyin. And what will make you know what Illiyun is? A register inscribed, to which bear witness those nearest to Allah. Verily Al-Abrar will be in the light, on thrones looking at all things. You will recognize in their faces the brightness of the light. They will be given to drink pure sealed wine. The last thereof, that wine will be the smell of musk, and for this let all those strive who want to strive. And that wine will be mixed with tasneem, a spring whereof drink those nearest to Allah. So when we look at these verses from Tafseer Imam Sa'di rahimahullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَلَّا إِنَّ كِتَابَ الْأَبْرَارِ لَفِي عِلِّيِّينَ. After the mention of the fujjar, the wicked ones, and they are in the lowest level and the most tight place in the hellfire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Kitab al-Abrar, the book of the Abrar or the righteous ones, in the highest level. لَفِي عِلِّيِّينَ, indeed لَفِي عِلِّيِّينَ. And compare the two opposites. You know, as the previous verses talked about the fujjar, here the verses talks about the abrar or the righteous ones in the highest level and the most spacious one. And their book is marqum also, that it's written and registered. يشهده المقربون, that means the nearest ones, they witness it. And muqarrabun are the angels. Who are the muqarrabun? Who are the nearest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The angels, the souls of the prophets, the truthful ones, the martyrs, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in their gathering in the highest level. And he says, عليون, you know, كلا إن كتاب الأبرار لفي عليين وما أدراك ما عليون. عليون is a name to the highest level or of Jannah. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned their books, he mentioned that they are in the light. And An-Na'im is a word that is a comprehensive one that brings all kinds of delight to the heart and the soul and the body. لفي نعيم, in the absolute sense. على الأرائك, on recliners, that is beautified, and it's something that nobody can really comprehend how beautiful it is. ينظرون, they're looking. Looking at what? It's mentioned in general like this. Look to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for them from An-Na'im. And they look also to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the things that the believers, which is the highest level of joy in Jannah, is when the believers, they see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So على الأرائك ينظرون, on the recliners they're looking. And looking at the things where no eyes have ever seen before, and no ears have ever heard, and no hearts have ever imagined. And with all of that, the delight matters in the Jannah. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's how the Prophet ﷺ described it. With all of this, compared to seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is no comparison. The highest level of joy and delight the believers they have in Jannah is when they see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. تعرف في وجوههم نظرة النعيم. تعرف, you would see, basically, all the one that is looking at them, on their faces, نظرة النعيم. An-Na'im is mentioned again, the delight, and the nadra is the beauty of the delight. That's something that can be seen on their faces. You know, you sometimes you see that, you know, even in this life, how people, the luxurious life seen on their faces, or when they're happy, this is something seen on their faces. So, and how can be something more pleasant on their faces better than the people of Jannah? The real happiness, that is, nobody can even comprehend how much happy they are. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all from the people of Jannah. تعرف في وجوههم نظرة النعيم يسقون من رحيق مختوم. They are given drink, يسقون من رحيق, something which is the best of all kinds of drinks and the most beautiful of it. مختوم, that means it's sealed. And this sealed is misk. You know, he says here that the meaning of it, that makhtoom, that means it's sealed, that anything else would be mixed with it that would decrease its pleasure and its beautiful taste. And this is basically the seal that it's sealed with, which is misk. This is one meaning. And also means that the one that is at the end part of the cup when they drink from it, which is al-rahiq, the last part of the drink, is musk, from the misk. And this is what basically usually the last part is what people leave, the thing that has maybe when you drink tea, for example, or and there's some left on the bottom of the drink that you won't drink it. So this is basically ختامه misk, one of the meanings of it, that what's left at the end that people used to leave in this dunya they drink, it's made from musk. That usually people in the dunya, in this life, they would pour it away, but in Jannah this is the best of it, they drink it. And in that na'im وفي ذلك فليتنافس المتنافسون, in that ultimate and everlasting delight that no one knows its beauty and its magnitude except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let those who compete, let them compete. فليتنافس المتنافسون. يتنافس, and we'll talk about the words of it. التنافس is to compete. And when you're competing with someone, you want to be first. So if you're competing with you and another person, you want to be ahead of that person. If you're competing with 10 people, you want to be the first. That's what competition is. فليتنافس المتنافسون. المتنافسون, those who compete. Let them, those who it's there. This is how the believers should be. Those who really understand what competition is, they should compete with one another to reach that level, to be among the people of Jannah. This is the most important, and the priority in one's life is to compete in this, not to compete in the things that people are foolishly competing over. Temporary matters, worthless matters. Sometimes even people would compete over things that has no benefit even in this dunya. And human beings, they understand what competition is. And people, when they have the ability to compete in something, they want to compete. And that's why al-mutanafisun, those who compete. Like, for example, if someone wants to, be in a competition of swimming, for example, but it's not going to be someone that doesn't know how to swim to compete. But he's not going to be in the competition of swimming. He has to be someone that is in the level where he reach a level of professionalism or goodness in swimming, then that would allow him to compete. Right? And that's a meaning that we need to reflect upon. So this is the significance of فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. Those who compete, let them compete. Right? So there's يَتَنَافَس is the verb. الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ, those people, those who are in the competition, they should compete. So, and this is how the people should be there. The believers in this life, they are the ones that are valid to compete. Before that, there's no competition. So they need to be among the believers. They need to believe. They need to fulfill al-iman. And these are the people that compete. So we're not competing with disbelievers, right? Competing with the believers. So among the believers, the competition should be there, who to be the first in matters of goodness and deed. And that's, if we reflect upon this, the competition in matters of dunya, in matters of worldly matters, you would be first. That means you took something from someone else. Someone is given something and someone is deprived of the same spot or the same thing or the same level. In matters of the hereafter, the competition, nobody lose. So if you're competing with everyone, right, the least, but he's still in the competition and he enters Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he would think that he is in the highest level. But it's a spacious one also in this life. It does not cause enmity. People in this world, they have envy, they envy one another, they hate one another when they compete. But when they compete in the matters of the hereafter, right, it brings even harmony and goodness and brotherhood when they're competing for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, وَمِزَاجُهُ مِن تَسْنِيم, talking still about the drink and how much it's mentioned in so much details. وَمِزَاجُهُ مِن تَسْنِيم, which means that the mizaj, or that wine that is mentioned, will be mixed with tasneem. وَمِزَاجُهُ مِن تَسْنِيم, which means this is the mix of it. What is tasneem? عَيْنًا يَشْرَبُ بِهَا الْمُقَرَّبُونَ. It's a spring, or it's an عَيْنًا is a spring. يَشْرَبُ بِهَا الْمُقَرَّبُونَ. That means those who are near, they drink from it. And it's the highest level of spring or the drink in Jannah. Not just for anyone, but for the nearest ones. And those who are in the highest level. and it's mixed. So the people in the highest level, they drink the pure of it. And those who are Ashabul Yamin, as we know in Jannah, there are two major levels. There is As-Sabiqun, the foremost, and there is Ashabul Yamin, the people they receive the book with the right hand. They're still in Jannah, but they're different levels in Jannah. So the highest ones, they drink the pure of it. For the one of Ashab al-Yamin, it's mixed. It's mixed with al-Rahiq that is mentioned before, and other beautiful drinks and so on. And those who are less, they don't see themselves as less. They see themselves as the highest, because nobody is going to feel anything less than perfect in the Jannah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for the believers. So it's verses that we need to keep on reading it over and over again, and to see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for the believers, and the details mentioned in the surah about even just the drink. And the drink is one thing that people enjoy in this life. And as the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the one that is addicted to wine in this world, he's going to be deprived from it in the hereafter. So if a person wants the khamr and the wine in Jannah, he should be patient to stay away from the khamr in this world. And if a person wants to drink such a drink that is mentioned, he should also give people to drink from water in this life, and to help people to drink from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided for them. If the reward is given from the same sort of deed that people do. You feed a hungry person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will feed you in the day of judgment. If you give someone drink when they're thirsty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you, and so on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala beautified and purified the wine for them, that it's not intoxicating as it was in this world. And He beautified it for them, that He made the seal of it with musk. And the end of it is with musk. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewarded them. When we look at the words of the verses, كَلَّا إِنَّ كِتَابَ الْأَبْرَارِ لَفِي عِلِّيِّينَ. So the abrar comes from ba, ra, ra, the righteous ones. And we talked about that, and how they basically gives the meaning of spaciousness, as it's mentioned in Surah Al-Infitar. Spaciousness in doing khayr. So it gives us a sense of what is really al-abrar. Al-abrar are those who are righteous, but there's spaciousness in this, because al-barr is the land versus the sea, right? So it's the spaciousness of khayr or goodness. كلا إن كتاب الأبرار لفي surely لا في the lam التوكيد عليين from عين لام واو, which means in high levels, and all the different words أعلى and things comes from that. وما أدراك ما عليون. And what do you know about عليون? As we know from before, when that is mentioned, القارعة ما القارعة وما أدراك ما القارعة, and so on, that is to make a tahwil, to make the great or the exalting the matter, because people might not comprehend it in the right way, because nobody's seen it. So what do you know about what عليون, which is one of the names of the highest level of Jannah, which is basically, that's what it means, عليون, high level of things. Kitab is a book, marqum, written, from ra, qaf, mim. يشهده, witnesses it, from shahida, يشهد. المقربون, those who are near, from qaf, ra, ba. المقربون, those who are near, from qareeb, and so on. And then the next ayah, إن الأبرار, indeed the righteous ones, لفي نعيم. And I talked about na'im before, from nun, ain, mim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, delight, and the like of this. على الأرائك, on the أرائك. أرائك is thrones, from ألف را را كاف. ألف را كاف, which is thrones, or not just any bed, but the thrones where it's beautified and it looks very beautiful. So that's what more of al-ara'ik, or not just any bed. ينظرون, from نظر, they're looking. تعرف, you will recognize. في وجوههم is the plural of wajh, their faces. نظرة النعيم, نظرة is from nun, dad, ra, the radiance. right? نضر الله امرأً, as the Prophet ﷺ said, may Allah brighten the face of someone that would convey the message of the Prophet ﷺ. So you have that nadra of an-na'im. وجوه يومئذ ناضرة, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, faces on that day will be ناضرة. So nadrat an-na'im, the nadra of the bliss and the delight. يسقون, they will be given to drink from Sin Qaf Ya. يسقون من رحيق مختوم. الرحيق, as we said, the pure wine, from Ra, Ha, Qaf. And al-rahiq is the pure drink in general, and it's one of the names of the wine in the hereafter, pure. There's no mixing in it or no bad things or anything like this. It's perfect. Al-rahiq makhtum. Makhtum means sealed, from kha, ta, mim. It means it's sealed, it's protected, as we heard. ختامه, its seal, from again kha, ta, mim, misk. Misk, which is the musk, the beautiful fragrance. وفي ذلك فليتنافس المتنافسون, in that of what's mentioned and the drinks and the delights in Jannah. فليتنافس, fa, then lam, an order, let them compete. فليتنافس, let those who compete, or let them be in a race to be the best, right? فليتنافس المتنافسون. and التنافس from noon fa seen, the nafas or the nafs is the ruh, is oneself, right? أخرجوا أنفسكم, like this. فالنفس is one's being, and when you put it with something else, that means it depends on how it's used. So المنافسة comes from oneself, that means you strive with your own self to be the best, right? So وفي ذلك فليتنافس means that let the person, that's each one, and this is what the meaning of competition, but how it comes, as you see the root from it, from oneself. So فليتنافس, let them aspire or compete. المتنافسون, the aspirers or those who compete. ومزاجه, and its mixture, from mim, zin, zain, jim. المزج is when you mix two drinks together. كان مزاجها كافورا, like this. كان مزاجها زنجبيلا, is mixed with zanjabil. So it's, as you see, the mizaj or the mixing, it's something that people do in this world with things that even beautify what they drink. ومزاجه من تسنيم, تسنيم from sin, nun, mim, and it's a spring, as it's mentioned in the next verse. And the sanam comes from something high, right? So tasneem, that's the name of it, though. Tasneem, that means aynan, it's a spring from ayn. Yashrabu, drink from it. Yashrabu biha al-muqarrabun, those who are near. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the people of Jannah, and to reflect upon these details. Some verses talks about Jannah in general, some of the verses talks about it in details. As you see here, the praise of the abrar, they enter the Jannah, and the details of delight is given for them because they are abrar. So the concern is how to be among the abrar, how to be among the righteous ones, and to, as the verse states, the belief in the hereafter and the belief in the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the importance of the righteous good deeds. A verse that should be the lifestyle of a Muslim. وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ, that in that people should compete, and to have the level of al-iman, to compete into the highest levels of Jannah. And the Salaf al-Salih, the early generations of Islam, this is used to be their life. They want to be, as Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, he said, أَلَّا يَسْبِقُكَ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَحَدٍ. That means don't let anyone be ahead of you in matters of goodness. So this is how, as we said, in matters of dunya, people are limited, right? That means you might limit it. You're not able to even physically be among those who can compete to run, for example, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you in such a way that you can fit to be the first, or even to fit in a competition in running, for example, 100 meters or something very fast, right? This is in the physical matters. You cannot compete in many things because you're limited. But when it comes to the hereafter, everybody are on the same level of competency to be able to compete, to be the first. Even if they're handicapped, even if they're physically impaired, whatever situation that they're in, we all have the same heart, the ability to excel and to be the first. And this is how it should be and how a person should look at it. Sometimes people, matters of deen, they say, how can I compete with the righteous ones, these righteous ones, or these people of knowledge that are so much, they have high zeal, they do so much, who am I to do this? Or when a person reads the stories of the companions radiallahu anhum, and a person who sees himself, he would give up on even competing with any matter. This is wrong. This is all whispers of shaitan. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the ability to be the best on the face of earth today, at this moment, by repenting to Allah, by doing the best we can, to the best of our ability, by following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, by being upon the proper knowledge and having the proper akhlaq and manners, right? And it doesn't matter where you are or what your occupation or whatever there is, each person has the ability to be the first. They're given the means as long as they are believers, and to perfect one's iman. And it's definitely a verse that needs to have more competition or more reflection, to reflect upon it and to think of that example that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. We'll stop here inshallah, and we continue inshallah ta'ala tomorrow with more of the verses, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who listen and obey, and to make us among the people of Jannah. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.